Hodges, right?
He's the man who wrote it. How are you?
Yeah, come forward a bit. Just move on. Me down tonight to take the
Here this evening for the launch of this fantastic book. And I tell you, I mean fantastic, because there won't be any sleep for 2 days. Now, it's written by Victor here on my left, and it's about a local man from Clonaglaskin, and a lot of you probably never heard of him, or you know somebody maybe belonged to him or whatever. No, I'm not going to speak forever. I'm going to put it very short, and I'm going to introduce you to Audrey, who is Victor's sister. So she can take over from here. Thank you.
Who was Johnnie Wheels? Well, you need to read the book if you want to find out. He was my granduncle, or my great-uncle. They're both the same thing, I've discovered. I had to Google it to find out, but yes, they're the same. He was Victor's granduncle as well. He was our grandfather's brother, to put it in perspective, and he came from Clonaglaskin. We never knew him because he died in 1932. I never knew anything about him. It was a big secret in our family. Many families had big secrets in those days, back in the 1800s. That was the way it was then. The Gills weren't the only relatives in Beara that Johnnie had. He had a sister called Jane, and Jane married Dick Hodges in Allihies. Johnnie was a granduncle to Tommy Hodges, some of you remember, to Willie Hodges, and to Harry Hodges. And I'm delighted to say that Richie Hodges is here to represent the Hodges family tonight. Lovely to have you with us, Richie, behind the camera. Also here tonight, we have members of the Gill family, apart from Victor and I. Tom's daughter Shirley has travelled quite a distance to be with us. And she would be Johnnie's grandniece as well. Am I right in that? I think I am. And we even have a great-grandniece, Jill, who has travelled a long distance to be with us tonight as well. The neighbours from Clonaglaskin, I haven't met you all yet, but I believe there are many of you here. And it's lovely, lovely, lovely to have you all here. We're thrilled to bits to have you. And some of you too have travelled a very long way to honour Johnnie Gill. I am so very proud of my brother Victor, writing the story and releasing Johnnie Gill to his rightful place in the family tree. I knew nothing about Johnnie Gill apart from his name on our family tree, and underneath it was written just 2 words: never married. Therefore, there was no follow-on. I wasn't interested. But he was a very interesting person. It's time indeed to honour Johnnie Gill, a genius of a man. Honour him in his family, honour him in his neighbourhood and beyond. And I hope we can all do that this evening. Thank you.
Great. Nice to see a big crowd here tonight. My name is Albert Kelly. My claim to fame is that I was born and reared in Clonaglaskin, 500 or 600 yards from where the Gills lived. They were left the place before I was born, but having said that, I got to know them all very, very well on account of their frequent visits to the place, their return visits. And I had a very selfish reason for seeing Tom in particular come because he always brought loads of dairy milk. And he was very, very welcome in the house. Now, some of you might know where Clonagoskin is, but if you travel towards Alahis from Castletownbere, it's 3 miles west. And when you come to the grotto on the right and to this used school, there's a slip road to the right after that. And if you take that slip road and the next right turn, it's the second farmhouse over that road. Now, some of you again may not know too much about the Gills, but the Gills came from Mayo in the early 1800s to Dromard in Arbroom. And the first gentleman of the Gills to come was a chap called Richard. And he had a son called Tom. We have a lot of Richard and Toms in this particular occasion. But he was Richard, and he had a son called Tom. And Tom and his wife Kitty moved to Clonagoskin around 1860. They had a son, Richard, and Richard married Harman from Dromagolon in Adrigol. That's just by way of fitting in the loose pieces and ticking the boxes. He had a sister married to Richard Hodges in Alahis, and I think you possibly would have known the Hodgeses. The son would be Jonathan Hodges, and the grandchildren or the grandsons, Tommy and Willie. And I think one died in England there recently. So, just to be brief about it, Tom moved in 1950 to Bandon, and he sold the place in 1953 to Dimna Healy and Jimmy Healy. The one thing I have in common with the Healys is that we both hit Clonagoskin the same year. That was 66 years ago. PJ, whatever he is, he wasn't far behind. Tom Gill had a sister by the name of Elizabeth, and she was married down in Dromeleague to a chap called Jim Sullivan, and she taught in Meany's National School. Now, Jim Sullivan was the manager, or a manager, in Warner's Cash Warehouse in Bantry, and that was a parent store to Warner's Cash Warehouse in Castletownbere. And Jim had a brother who worked in Warner's Cash Warehouse in Castletownbere, and his name was Jack, and he was affectionately known as Jack and Warner's. Now, just for a bit of continuity, Elizabeth had 2 in the family. Number one.
No, number 1.
Number 2. This is number 1. And I'm sure any of you over 50, definitely over 55, would have danced to the sounds of the Dual Quartet. And this chap playing the organ, he's responsible for many a good night.
And the match.
And anyway, on that note, I think I'll hand you over to Victor to do the real thing. Thank you very much.
I'll start with what's in this Johnnie Wheels book as the prologue. What was the big secret? While on long summer holidays on my grandmother's farm near Castletownbere in Ireland in the 1940s, I became increasingly aware that something was being hidden from me. My childish queries failed to get a direct answer when I discovered strange tools in the drawer. What were they for? Who had used them? Why were words and dates written on the underside of the kitchen table? Who wrote those words there? Why? What had made the curious scorch marks on the kitchen furniture? I became convinced that there was a big secret hidden in my granny's house. Something even grown-ups wouldn't talk about. Something a child should never even hear about. A crime, perhaps? A mad relative? Had a murderer lived in my granny's house at some time? Or might it be something even worse? In 1946, when I was 9 years old, and on my annual holiday on that farm once again, my Uncle Tom deemed me grown up enough to do a man's job. I was entrusted to drive a horse-drawn harrow in the field immediately in front of the farmhouse. As the harrow's tines broke up the clumps of soil, a tumbling, rusty object caught my eye. It looked like a corroded toy revolver, so I snatched it up without stopping the horse and slipped it into the pocket of my grubby jacket. That evening, as I sat on the doorstep digging out rust and mud from what appeared to be a very corroded toy, I overheard my grandmother whisper to my uncle, "Tom, Tom, the child has found Johnny's gun." That's what I found. That evening, as I sat in the service, I pretended not to have heard the comment. My Uncle Tom took the rusty gun, examined it carefully, and handed it back to me, having deemed it to be unloaded and safe. I carried on cleaning the corroded remains of what had been a revolver. Suspecting that I would not get a direct answer if I asked who this Johnny was whose gun I had unearthed, I decided to ask Mike, a very elderly neighbour. Good decision. "Ah, that would be poor old Johnny Gill's gun that you've turned up at the Harrow. He was your granduncle. He died in 1932. He had a great pair of hands and a great head to go with them. Come in and sit down. I knew him, and 'twill please me to tell you a lot more about him." Johnny Gill knew a lot about things most of us around here never even heard of. He could understand how sewing machines worked. Clocks and watches and gramophones and complicated things like that were no bother to him, and he could repair them too. He was fierce clever in spite of being a cripple. He made that chair you're sitting on. So why the big secret? What was so dreadful or shameful about my clever, crippled great-uncle Johnny that he should never be mentioned? Had he committed serious crimes? Why did he have a revolver? Had he murdered someone with it? Curiosity is a powerful driving force, and information denied is a massive motivator. Here, at last, in spite of all the attempts to hide the truth and bury the evidence, is my attempt to answer the question, who was Johnny Gill?
Thank you, Victor. That was excellent. Now, it's a fantastic book, as everybody has said, but we are also very pleased to be associated with a very good charity, and that is the Irish Wheelchair Association. And here to say a few words on their behalf is Martin McCarthy. Thank you, Martin.
My name is Martin McCarthy. I'm the Cork City and County Services Manager for the Irish Wheelchair Association. We are absolutely proud and honoured and delighted to be the beneficiaries of the proceeds of the sale of this book, and to be considered for it is a big honour for us. So thank you, Victor and his family, who are a huge driving force, and we're delighted to be associated with you all. I have the best job in the world, absolutely the best job in the world. I'm responsible for delivering thousands of hours of support to people with physical and sensory disabilities all over Cork City and all over Cork County. Cork City and County is managed from West Cork, so up West Cork. So it is a big interesting job, which I absolutely adore, and I adore it because I have a lucky job, because I'm part of people's journey in life. Helping and assisting and supporting and enabling and mobilising and getting people going and keeping them going. That's an important function, which I take very seriously. That's the theme of this book. Our organisation was established in the 1960s, 130 years after John. Okay, we're still struggling to get people on the road and to get people out into their community and be active citizens in their community. There's so many barriers. You can imagine back in 1830 how difficult it was for John. Read his book. It's a journey of overcoming, and we have a lot to learn by looking back. So it is great to be part of people's life journeys, and it is great to be part of Johnny's life journey and to be with him here tonight. I think we're delighted to be part of this group. So thank you all for support. And I hope the book sells well, which it will. And thanks.
Martin, thank you so much. And
this is about the stage when Johnny was making himself really useful. He was very good with his hands, and he had visited Dunboy Castle, the dump in Dunboy Castle, and he found a booklet about a thing he never even saw before in his life, a sewing machine. This is back now in the 1880s, 1870s, somewhere around there. And he had never seen a real sewing machine. And he had this book and he studied it and he was interested in it. And then opportunity arose. He heard that there was a tailor, Dan the tailor, had bought a sewing machine and he could make no hand of it. He had paid his money for a Singer sewing machine from a salesman and he could not make it work. So Johnny studied his book and he decided he would go to Dan the tailor and help him out. And his sister went with him, Susan. Cut a long story short. Before him was the Singer sewing machine. It was not exactly the same as the one in the book that he had rescued from the bonfire in Dunboy, but it was near enough. He turned the wheel gently with one hand. The needle moved up, then down. A reel of white linen thread surmounted the machine, and Johnny's eye followed the thread's route down towards the needle. It was as he expected. He moved the wheel again. "Some scrap material to sew," ordered Johnny, holding out a hand without taking his eyes off the needle. Dan responded with a strip of grey cloth. Johnny fed the material under the needle and slowly turned the wheel by hand, and was rewarded with a very crude stitch. For a long time he studied the machine's movements. Then he began to make changes. "The tension is wrong," declared Johnny, gently pulling the thread while turning a spring-adjusting knurled nut, his confidence growing. "Is that bad?" "Nothing that some careful adjustments can't fix," replied the young expert as he altered the tension setting. He turned the wheel slowly again, and again while peering closely at the needle's descent through the scrap of fabric. His audience watched in silence. The machine produced a much improved stitch. Then a better one, and a better one still. More fine adjustments, better stitches each time. "Get me 2 strips of cloth to sew together. Black would be best. The white thread would show out best against the black." Dan swung away on his crutches in a search for scraps of black material. "Will you be able to get it to sew better than that?" whispered his sister anxiously. The reply was a scornful glance. "I'll get you to sew with it first," Johnny whispered. "That should prove to Dan, as well as to yourself, how easy it is to use." Not sure whether she should feel flattered or offended, Susan did not reply. "You have great patience," commented Dan, returning with the black strips. "Patience and perseverance will take a snail to Jerusalem," quoted Johnny. "Now we'll try a quick run across the scraps you brought there." Johnny turned the wheel by hand. The needle bobbed up and down, slowly at first, then faster. "Jesus, you've got it working," said Dan, rubbing his hands together delightedly. "Susan, turn the machine around so you can sit and work the treadle with your feet," Johnny ordered. "I want to watch it sewing from the other side." Happy to play her part in the operation, his sister obeyed. She had operated a treadle before on a spinning wheel, and her first sewing attempt produced a reasonably straight line of white stitching. Then she turned the material round and stitched her way back with growing confidence. Like the wake behind a ship, the white stitches flowed across the black material. Dan, grinning in anticipation, yet still unsure about demonstrating his own expertise in the presence of a girl who seemed to be little more than a child, hesitated when invited to take over from Susan. She added another row of stitches, then stood up. "Go on, now you try it." Dan tried it, operating the treadle awkwardly with his one leg first. Soon the piece of black trial fabric was covered with lines of white stitching. Dan cut it free from the sewing machine and tried unsuccessfully to pull the stitching apart. "Jesus, that's great! That's bloody great sewing! Perfect on each side, and it goes on so fast too. God bless you, Johnny Gill. You've made my day. Dan watched thoughtfully as Johnny dragged himself across the damp, muddy ground to where Susan had tied the horse. She reattached the rope to the cart, and Johnny heaved himself up off the ground. You must get awful wet and dirty dragging yourself around like that all the time. It keeps me from getting delusions of grandeur, replied Johnny. There must be easier way to avoid such delusions. Thanks for fixing my sewing machine. By next morning, a bleary-eyed Dan the tailor was boasting that he and his machine could outsew any seamstress in the county. No money had changed hands, but Johnny Gill's reputation as a fixer of sewing machines was assured. Dan told everyone who would listen to him about that genius Johnny Gill, who knows everything about sewing machines. Within a few days, Johnny's reputation as a sewing machine expert had spread throughout the dressmaking and tailoring professionals, and he was being called upon to solve urgent problems, mostly requiring only minor tensions, regulations, or fluff removal.
Thank you, Victor, and that I'd like you to give him a major round of applause, please. Because
I'll make this very short and sweet. Already I have made mistakes because I've already seen another cousin of the Gills, Ronnie Gill, has arrived as well, and I just want to welcome Ronnie. Have I left any other cousins out? Have I left any other neighbours out? My apologies if I have. And before you all go, especially the Clonaglaskin people, as they would have been Johnny's immediate neighbours, I would love if if Anne-Marie could take a photograph of the Clonaglaskin neighbours who are here. I don't know how many of you are, but as soon as I've finished, if you come up and get a photograph here of the Clonaglaskin neighbours, please. Now, I just want to say a quick thank you, first of all, to the hotel for giving us shelter and warmth tonight. They've been so helpful to us. To the Southern Star, who printed and promoted this book, especially to Murren, Siobhan, Helen Riddle, who has been a great help too, and Anne-Marie Cronin, of course, our photographer from the Southern Star here this evening. Thank you so much. I would like to thank the Southern Star for giving us great publicity, as you probably are all aware, from last week to this week, and again, I hope photographs next week now again. I think the parish newsletter, I'm not sure whether it got into it or not, but thanks to Mary Harrington, if it did get into it, I have no idea. I'm sure some of you do know. Yes, it did. Thank you very much for that. And thank you, Mary. The Historical Society was my first port of call, really, when because I knew something about them. So thank you for all your introductions and your enthusiasm and the making of contacts for me and tidying up a few names and families and where they were. That has been great. The Wheelchair Association, Martin, thank you so much for taking this on and with great enthusiasm. It's been a pleasure to work with you so far, and I'm sure it will be for the rest of the run, on and on and on and on for Johnnie Wheels, let's hope. I hope the book will bring great results for the Wheelchair Association. Thanks to all the businesses who are willing to sell the book. In due course, hopefully it'll be getting out there this coming week. So thank you very much indeed. And we are especially grateful to all of you who have come this evening, some of you having travelled long distances. We hope that you will enjoy the story. I'm sure you will. I've read it 4 times. So just enjoy it. And please chat among yourselves. Please have your picture taken. Please have a cup of tea. And please, above all else, introduce yourselves to us and all the other Gills who happen to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Audrey, and I hope nobody was left out there. And I'd just like to wish you all a safe home. Oh, Audrey said you're not going home yet. I don't know what's going on.
They have to have a cup of tea.
Oh, sure, there's tea and coffee. I forgot about that. All right, okay. have a cup of tea, cup of coffee, whatever you're being asked, and then have a very safe journey home.
My mother said he was come flying down the road and he had this wheelchair. He made it himself.